Golden, the breakout song from Netflix's K-pop Demon Hunters, just claimed the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100s earlier this month, becoming the 9th ever song associated with K-pop to ever do so, as well as being the first ever K-pop girl group act to have such achievement. Similarly, the movie has achieved great success as well, becoming the most watched original animated film with a massive 184.6 million views since it was first released on June 20 this year. Being in the animation community, I've actually heard a lot about this movie being in the works as early as my first year in art school in 2022. I personally even knew some teachers who worked on this film, and we even had some brute discussions about this rumored K-pop animation movie by Sony. But the outcome was definitely not how we all imagined it to be when it got released in 2025. Now, wherever you go, wherever you scroll, you are bound to see something related to K-pop Demon Hunters. And I think it's just so fascinating on how this franchise and how HUNTR has became so popular and blew up all over the internet. I think why I especially find this to be interesting is because this is not the first time we've seen a fictional group or K-pop group succeed so well. So in today's video, I wanted to explore as well as do a deep dive on fictional music groups, K-pop included, as well as the appeal of these bands, especially because some of them surpass real K-pop acts or other music groups out there. Hi everyone, my name is Veda, aka Saku, here on the internet, and for those of you who don't know, I am an animator and I am also a K-pop stan, as you can see my carrot bong at the background of this video. So when I learned there would be some sort of animated movie about K-pop produced by Sony, known for like their Spider-Verse style, I was like, oh my gosh, when this movie finally releases, I wonder what it's gonna be like, and boy, was it really something. Although I have my opinions about this film, which I'll probably share towards the end of this video, but the entire time when I was watching K-pop Demon Hunters, I was just thinking about how popular fictional music groups / virtual bands have gotten in recent years. So let's take a deep dive, shall we? What are fictional music groups in the first place? Fictional music groups are bands that are made up of fictional members, often originating from movies and TV shows, which can be both live action or animated content. Although the members may not be real, the music is real, and fans can still enjoy their music through the typical music platforms. Similarly, there are also something called virtual bands, in which the members are not real people, but animated characters or virtual avatars. However, the difference is that there may not necessarily be a movie / TV show that the band has originated from. Although both fictional music groups and virtual bands are slightly different, there is a lot of overlap in between, in which HUNTR, the group in K-pop Demon Hunters, falls into both categories. The best way to put it is that you can say that all animated fictional music groups can be considered virtual bands, but not all fictional groups are considered virtual bands, and vice versa. Believe it or not, this concept of virtual bands have actually been around for decades. One of the first examples that I'm sure many of you know is actually Alvin and the Chipmunks. This anthropomorphic rodent trio got its start in December 1958, releasing the Chipmunk song, which climbed all the way to #1 on the Hot 100 and was actually the song people played during Christmas until Mariah Carey came along. On top of that, their debut song actually took home 3 Grammy Awards: Best Recording for Children, Best Comedy Performance, and Best Engineered Record Non-Classical. Over 40 years later, the franchise got rebooted into a CG/live action jukebox musical adaptation in 2007, which is when all the millennials and Gen Z are first introduced to the Alvin and the Chipmunks, including myself. I remember watching this movie franchise as a kid, and I strictly remember that I discovered Lady Gaga's music through Alvin and the Chipmunks. What can I say? Another famous fictional group I wanted to talk about, although they aren't animated but still involved characters, are the beloved Muppets. Created by Jim Henson in 1955, the ensemble first charted in 1979 with its holiday album, reaching number 13 on the Top Country Albums chart and number 26 on the Billboard 200 in 1980. However, one particular puppet was a lot more popular than the others, this being no other than Kermit the Frog, as his song Rainbow Connection from its 1979 The Muppet Movie reached number 25 on the Hot 100 and number 18 on Adult Contemporary. The song also received an Oscar nomination for Best Original Song. So even during the 50s, the concept of using characters to create this musical act has started to make its ways, but the idea of virtual bands really became popular in the 2000s. And one of the reasons is due to the group Gorillaz, which is an English band consisting of 4 fictional members, 2D, Murdoch Nichols, Noodles, and Russell Hobbs, who are portrayed through comic strips, short cartoons, interviews, and music videos. The band's 2001 debut album, named Gorillaz, went triple platinum in the UK and double platinum in Europe. And as to date, Gorillaz have been nominated for 11 Brit Awards and won Best British Group at the 2018 Brit Awards. And although, as I mentioned before, the concept of fictional groups / virtual bands isn't new, but I really think it was during Gorillaz' time where they really transformed the concept to adapt to the modern day era when the internet started to come along. Jamie Hewlett, one of the artists behind Gorillaz, said, "If you watch MTV for too long, it's a bit like hell. There's nothing of substance there. So we got this idea for a virtual band, something that would be a comment on that." In the past, fictional groups with these animated characters or mascots were mainly for children only, but Gorillaz was different and kind of became the start to something new, that fictional / virtual bands can be taken seriously and regarded as actual musicians, rather than a franchise for kids or just to keep people entertained. Now, let's take a plane and fly across the Pacific Ocean to Asia, in which virtual bands have become a huge thing as well, especially the concept of virtual idols, originating from Japan around the 80s with roots from anime and Japanese idol culture. I think the most iconic example of this is no other than the queen herself, Hatsune Miku, a Vocaloid software with an official mascot of a 16-year-old girl with long turquoise twin tails. First released on August 31, 2007. I don't want to get too into Vocaloid, but how each Vocaloid has such an iconic anime character design representing it, such a groundbreaking idea at the time, which my favorite is Kagamine Lin if anyone's curious. Plus, you can also make them sing any song you want, which was really revolutionary. With the anime community already being pretty big on the internet at the time, they ate this up. The fact that anyone could use Miku's voice to make songs, especially for those talented music producers who was looking for a voice to sing their songs, it was a match made in heaven. May I mention that some of these Vocaloid music videos are also animated so well, which made people even more immersed into these stories and universes that these Vocaloid songs were bringing. Fast forward a few more years came the rise of virtual YouTubers / streamers, Kizuna Ai being one of the first, debuting in 2016, often releasing a lot of songs as well. And now, being in the 2020s, VTubers have exploded in popularity, which many of them are also musicians, such as Hoshimachi Suisei, with her first album Still Stellar charting 5th on Oricon Daily Album Ranking and 1st on iTunes in Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and Taiwan. Having a mascot / character to become the face of one's music quickly has proven to be a very effective way to grab people's attention, especially in the past when it wasn't as common to do so. Plus, having a fictional character instead of having a real-life human out there allowed the musician or the musicians behind the project to become much more creative, as they can literally create anything they want without the physical limitations, having people behind the scenes catering their strengths towards creating this character that can do anything, as well as being able to control things they usually couldn't, with the most obvious thing being visual appearance. And may I add, with having a fictional character instead of putting yourself in there, it also adds a layer of safety, which I think it's very good, because when musicians have fame, they can't even do simple things such as going out to the supermarket. Although character design and having a strong defining visual style has proven to be very effective, the story or universe behind it is also very, very important. And that's when fictional music groups come in, as they are from a movie/TV show or even a game, which meant that there is already a story behind the whole group. Human beings are wired for story. Storytelling allows us to feel emotion and to connect with others. Personally, when I really resonate with a movie/TV show, it kind of takes over me for the next few weeks or even months. I'll spend a lot of time thinking and really processing the story. And I think one of the best ways to bring me back into that movie/TV show's universe is by consuming their music. By having a fictional group with real songs and albums, fans can revisit their favorite characters whenever they want casually. And on the other hand, studios can make more by having music royalties and earn more money. Actually, this idea of combining music with storytelling has always been around for a very, very long time. Let's talk about Disney for a bit, shall we? The Mickey Mouse Club is a variety show created by Walt Disney in 1955, featuring a cast of mostly child, tween, or teen performers singing and dancing. With the success of the Mickey Mouse Club records being in the millions, since the profit was shared with two other record labels, that gave Roy, which is Walt Disney's brother, the idea to start an in-house record label for all of Walt Disney Productions. From then on, music or soundtrack from any Disney media, Disney itself will profit from all of its music royalties as well, which seems so straightforward now, but back in the day it was less common to do so because a lot of studios didn't have that kind of power. But rather than just the OSTs or the title theme, fast forward to the 2000s, that was really when Disney tried to make a lot of fictional groups, especially targeting that teen/tween demographic. One of the first examples of this is the Cheetah Girls, formed in 2002, which began as a fictional quartet for the 2003 film of the same name, which also is, fun fact, the first ever musical Disney Channel movie. It became a huge hit right away. Its soundtrack became certified double platinum, which the members started to record more songs and became an actual vocal group who ended up being very, very successful, not only having numerous merchandise lines, but also 3 North American tours, as well as selling 11 million records worldwide. Following the success of Cheetah Girls, Disney decided they wanted to make another fictional musical act, that act being Hannah Montana, which is the show I watched growing up. A story about a middle school girl living a double life as a famous pop star. The character of Hannah charted 20 songs on the Hot 100s in 2006 to 2010, as well as charting 8 albums on the Billboard 200. Hannah Montana was just so iconic to me as a child. I had an era which I also wanted to be a pop star because of Hannah Montana, and I even had Hannah Montana pajamas at one point. It's also important to note that a lot of the fictional groups' music success is due to their movie/TV show counterpart, which is also the biggest way for them to promote their album indirectly as well. Especially because these movies producing these shows are bigger studios, which often led to more resources and connections, which is in a way easier for them to promote their music compared to, for example, an indie musician. Another reason for these fictional groups' music success is that I realized that as long as you are a fan of a movie/TV show, there's a high chance you would listen to the soundtrack even if the music is something you usually wouldn't listen to. I think part of it, as I mentioned earlier, is wanting to relive the story again, but also after watching a movie and getting to know the characters, you start to form an attachment. Like, you know the story behind these people, well, these characters. At least I find that to be the case for me most of the time. So as you can see, the idea of fictional groups/virtual bands have existed and have proven to be very successful for many, many decades. One thing I truly believe is that history will always find its way to repeat itself, just in slightly different ways. And I really do think that the success of K-pop Demon Hunters is a very strong example of how it's currently repeating in this day and age. Especially in the last decade, K-pop has exploded in popularity, becoming a global phenomenon. I think one thing that makes K-pop really stand out, especially compared to Western pop, is its styling and its structure. Of course, a lot of origins of K-pop are stemmed from Western influences, drawing inspiration from a range of genres, from pop, experimental, rock, hip-hop to R&B and electronic. K-pop really experimented with what they could do while giving a Korean spin to it. They're not afraid to try super bold and crazy concepts, as well as making dance a very pivotal part of the genre. I also think what's fascinating about K-pop is its structure. From the trainee system to forming a group and delegating each member with different roles such as a main vocal, a lead vocal, a main dancer, a lead dancer, a main rapper, a center, a visual, a leader, etc. Then each comeback will have a different concept, from the bad boy to the schoolboy to the girl crush to the retro concept, with dedicating stylings to each member. Not to mention things like the official fandom name, to dance challenges, to each member's official color, plus how idols are unapologetically forced to do aegyo or fan service from their companies, how they aren't afraid to be wacky. There's just so many things you can play around with K-pop that makes it so charming and different. And throughout the 2010s, I slowly witnessed K-pop being from something deemed as nerdy or even cringe to slowly becoming something mainstream and something cool. However, I think one thing that K-pop is strongly associated with, or rather infamous for, is the K-pop stans. As a K-pop stan myself, I do agree that there are a lot of delusional and crazy people out there. But of course, rotten apples spoil the bunch, because as far as I know, the power of K-pop stans is a power like no other. The dedication of some of them, let's just say, if K-pop stans put their mind to it, they can accomplish anything. So with more and more people joining the K-pop bandwagon, it wasn't long until companies realized that, hey, we can profit off these K-pop stans. Well, hopefully it wasn't just for profit, but the directors really wanted to try out something new and work on a fun project. But now is the time I wanted to talk about a virtual group that brought a lot of new eyes into K-pop, or rather new ears into K-pop. And that's actually how I really got into K-pop as well. And that group is no other than KDA, a fictional K-pop group from League of Legends, which I'm wearing a Kali's jacket. So I wanted to do like a low-key cosplay for this video. League has always been a popular game, and they've always had music projects like the annual World Esport Championship theme and Pentakill, which is a metal rock virtual band in the game's universe, released in 2014. However, it was around 2018 when Riot, which is League of Legends company, decided that they would create a new virtual group. As South Korea is one of the most important countries for League of Legends, home to the largest amount of League players and having one of the most successful esports teams, Korea and League go hand in hand. At the time, which is 2018, K-pop was one of the fastest growing music genres, and it was starting to make its way to the West. Quote, "It was around that time that we thought, you know what? I think we do have something really cool to say here, something that we can add to the conversation in pop music," quote. Patrick Morales, the principal creative director at Riot Games, said. And with that, Riot picked out 4 champions, Akali, Ari, Evelyn, and Kaisa, and created the K-pop group KDA. Since Riot is an American company, in order for KDA to really feel authentic to the K-pop genre, Riot pulled together a star-studded cast consisting of Madison Beer, Jaira Burns, as well as idols Mion and Soyeon, creating a perfect blend between English and Korean. Quote, I definitely thought it was going to be a little more soundtrack sounding, said Madison Beer, who sang Evelyn's part in the title track Pop Stars, something that would play in the background when people are playing the game. But then it's this super badass song that's empowering and has this awesome message. It was definitely not what I expected in the best way. And equally, League of Legends also didn't expect the song and this concept of KDA to be such a huge banger. For better or for worse, I was actually a very active League player around this time, and I remember every League streamer reacting to the KDA music video, which, may I add, has the most awesome animation and visuals, and also just seeing the champions dance together, and they're usually like fighting on the battlefield, but now they're pop stars. The whole thing was just crazy. Needless to say, everybody was hooked. Everybody was buying in-game points to buy these skins, including myself, regardless if they previously listened to K-pop or not. A video game having a K-pop concept was sort of revolutionary at the time. K-pop stans and League of Legends players were both eating it up, and the song immediately became viral, racking up 100 million views in just 1 month. Wanting for more, this got a lot of people who like KDA to actually get into K-pop as well, especially because 2 of the voices behind KDA are actual K-pop idols. And with this whole KDA phenomenon, it really solidified the concept of virtual idols, especially in the West, which is not as prevalent at the time. The success of KDA led Riot to work on a comeback for the girl group, releasing the album All Out, featuring big names in K-pop like Twice, who was coincidentally also featured in K-pop Demon Hunters. They also launched a new singer champion, Sserafim, who became a guest feature for KDA's new song, More. KDA was one of the first virtual K-pop groups that proved the concept could be very successful. And after the success of KDA, although we can't tell if it was actually KDA that influenced this to happen or not, slowly but surely more of these virtual idol concepts starting to appear, such as PLAVE, a virtual 5-member boy group created with CG visuals in the style of manhwa characters who debuted in 2023, or even aespa, a 4-member girl group who debuted under SM Entertainment in 2020 with a metaverse concept in which each member has their own virtual avatar counterpart. Even though I don't really think aespa has used their virtual avatar counterpart in the most recent few comebacks. It's crazy how influential K-pop has become in the recent decade. I'm not Korean, but I can't help but to feel happy that there's a lot more Asian representation now in the West, as well as people being a lot more accepting of different Asian cultures. However, despite being a K-pop stan and a sucker for good animation, the movie actually wasn't really my cup of tea. I know, after everything I talked about in this video and how awesome virtual groups are and how successful they can become, but I personally just wasn't a huge fan on the pacing of the film. But that's just my opinion, and I do understand the charm of this film as well. As Sony does best, the animation is awesome, the character design slap, the whole world building, the colors, the visual development. I know so many talented artists who worked on this film, and the songs are also undoubtedly huge bangers. Although I'm not a big fan of the film itself, I find myself humming a lot to HUNTR's songs, and how it's done is a huge banger. Like, if I need to work out, this is the song I'll play. It's crazy to see how virtual bands have evolved over time, how musicians and artists have full control of the group's appearance, voice, and even movement to create the most ideal members, which in turn would attract more fans, while utilizing aspects of storytelling and character building to create an emotional and memorable connection between the fan and the group. Plus, having a movie/TV show builds even more of a deeper connection, as well as unintentionally promoting its music, especially in the case of K-pop Demon Hunters, because having a concept like K-pop idols being demon hunters, that's something you've never heard of, which got a lot of curious people to watch it and then therefore listen to their songs, and then maybe they'll be converted into HUNTR fans. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this deep dive on fictional groups as well as virtual bands. I had a lot of fun researching for this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts about K-pop Demon Hunters or just any band I mentioned in this video, because I really think it's very fascinating how this is like a new medium of artists. Can you call it that? Like a new type of artist. And there's so much you can play around with it, which I think is very cool as well. So yeah, please tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. On this channel, I talk about topics that I'm passionate about, ranging from art, animation, culture, psychology, and more. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm also an animator, so I post content about drawing and my life as an artist occasionally as well. So if you're interested, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support would mean a lot to me. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video, whenever that will be. Okay, bye bye! Oh my god, I have something to say. Like when I was watching HUNTR, the whole time I was like, this movie reminds me of something, and I didn't know what it was for the longest time, but I knew it was a movie from my childhood. And after talking to some of my elementary school friends, like we caught up recently, like they were telling me, it's just like Equestria Girls! Like in the Rainbow Rocks movie, like how Main Six and Sunset Shimmer had to have a battle of the bands against the Dazzlings, and they were like both fighting for like music fans. Like, oh my god, like we know where your inspiration come from. It was My Little Pony. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to share that observation. Okay, bye bye.